Stefan, nice to see you.
I'll go next just because I'm already
Sure.
unmuted.
Okay.
I'm Ashley in the Boston chapter. Um, my first One Brick event was at our Red Cross Food Pantry in Roxbury with some EM named Graham.
I guess I didn't scare you away.
Yeah, I guess not.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I finally unmuted myself. So yes,
No
how's it going?
problem. Good. So we're basically introducing ourselves, and the icebreakers. What was your first One Brick event?
All
Yeah, it's been
right.
a while.
God, I'm really trying to think. All right. Well, for the folks who don't know, name is Stefan from the Boston chapter. My first One Brick event, I believe, was over at God dang, I'm really trying to think. I think it was at the home for veterans, the center and the home for
Yeah,
veterans. Yeah, cause I think we just restarted doing it, but we did it way back in the day. So yeah,
we did.
that was my first event, at least from what I can remember.
Cool.
And my first EM was, ooh, yeah, I got nothing.
Hey, it's okay. Letty or Jeanette?
I'll go. I'm Jeanette from the Seattle chapter. My first event was back in 2010, and it was setting up for the Friends of the Seattle Public Library's big annual book sale, which in itself was not that fun because we were lugging around like 30, 40-pound boxes of books, and it was a huge warehouse that was like a decommissioned Navy base, and it was very hot and sweaty. But afterwards, in true One Brick fashion, they invited us all out to go eat and drink, and I ended up chatting with everyone and thought, this is a good group of people, and kept volunteering, and here I am.
Hey, I'm Letty, formerly from the DC chapter. My first One Brick event was, I want to say it was the end of 2009. It was, we were writing for the troops. We were writing Christmas cards, and I actually met was it Barbara Bush, the first lady at the time? Yeah, I think it was the older Bush. It was Barbara Bush. I got to meet the first lady there. So that was my first One Brick event. And I said, this is pretty cool. I think I'll come back to do this organization.
Cool. So again, today is the fourth of the six sessions. I'm glad to have all you here today. We'll be talking about volunteer relations. So the way it's going to work is I'm just going to quickly go through a little bit, sort of summarizing what's in the resource guide, showing you some of the additional resources we have in there in the volunteer and community relations section, giving you some examples, best practices, and things, and then we'll open it up to everyone to make sure that we have an open dialogue and make sure that you're able to get out of this what you'd like to get out of this. And that's kind of what we've done for the last couple, and it seems to have worked pretty well. Again, trying to keep it brief. So I'm going to pull up the guide. Just give me a second. Try to figure out how to do this. Present. Okay. I'm too used to Zoom. So. Yes. You everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, just checking. All right, so this is the resource guide. If you haven't seen it before, again, it has a whole table of contents with each of the sections, and then links, side links that will take you to each of the sections. So today we're going to talk about particularly volunteer and community relations, which is really one of the more important and very broad parts of One Brick, sort of covering everything from marketing events, the newsletter, social media, um, uh, in many chapters, it may have a different name. It could be marketing, social media. Originally in Boston, Volunteer Community Relations also did the socials. They did basically was marketing and socials. So it's a pretty broad area. So we have all that in here, everything from the newsletter to social media to socials, and as well as partnerships. We talk about in this section as well. Newsletter. The One Brick newsletter has been sort of an important way to get the word out for volunteers. A lot of people still use email. I know that when we used to do surveys in Boston more frequently, a lot of people said they actually learned about a lot of our events through the newsletter, in addition to the website. So we recommend that chapters send a regular newsletter, at least once a month or more often if needed, using the newsletter tool on the One Brick website. We do have a best practice guide and tips that we have a link here to. We put this together maybe 3 or 4 years ago, sort of giving tips on sort of what to put in newsletter content, sort of some tips about photos and personalization. This was something that we did a presentation about. I actually did a recorded call, which if I can find the link, I'll have to see if I can track Melissa down. If we can find the link to this session, I will definitely put it in the guide, the link to that. So that's a good sort of resource for your chapter. If you have a newsletter writer, show them that. We also have a instruction guide for the newsletter, basically step-by-step process with screenshots, how you actually use the tool. This didn't exist before, so we built it from scratch, sort of to explain the process. It can be a little finicky, so if you have someone new that's writing a newsletter, it's a good tool. Social media, obviously, in this day and age, is a big part of getting our name out there. So, here we have some, tips about, obviously, Facebook is important, Instagram, Twitter, volunteer match. Many chapters use at the website where you can post events and generic posts for One Brick events, and then you can directly link people to our event pages. I know a lot of chapters have used that with success. This is maybe a little bit dated, but there used to be a lot of listservs and local web bulletin boards. That may be more of like a 10-year ago thing, but if they still exist, web bulletin boards and some old listservs, they were a useful tool to help get out the word for our events. In Boston, for example, there's a listserv of young nonprofit professionals called YNPN, and that's something that we've used in the past to help get the word out there. So these listservs can actually be a good way to get One Brick's name out to people who might not necessarily be on our mailing list. Craigslist is, still a big tool in certain cities. I know the West Coast chapters in particular. I think San Francisco, Silicon Valley like to use that. Yelp is good for posting social events, and also good to have a page for your local chapter. That has been a successful tool in Boston. In fact, at one point, I think it was about 8 years ago, we actually did a project with Yelp, and we ended up getting actually a fair number of people involved with Yelp who ended up becoming volunteers. Community partnerships, I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but leveraging partners to help get the word out about our volunteer events, social and special events, volunteer expos and fairs. When we get out to doing in-person things again, they're a great way to get One Brick visibility and exposure. We also have a series of national social media pages. I don't know, Letty, if you want to mention a little bit about the One Brick community pages.
Okay, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so we did a couple of One Brick community pages, kind of to try to foster a little bit more interest, maybe in places where we may have had a One Brick chapter and are no longer there, and people may still be involved, and try to gather get more people interested or keep people engaged. Sometimes chapters aren't necessarily posting a lot. So if, let's say, Silicon Valley's constantly posting, and perhaps maybe, I don't know, we don't have a chapter in Florida, but I'm just going to use Florida as an example, isn't posting as much.
We did at one point.
Yeah. But no longer. But let's say they're not posting as much. Maybe pulling some of the stuff from Silicon Valley and just posting it there just kind of keeps people engaged. People do travel. They know friends. They have family, and maybe you may not be in a state where you have the opportunity to volunteer, but perhaps word of mouth. You may hey, tell your relative or friends or whatever, hey, why don't you try One Brick and wherever. So we try to get that engaged. So I encourage people to post, because I will steal it and post it on the community page. And we have the Twitter, Facebook, and the other one is the Instagram.
Nice.
And I don't know, maybe TikTok coming soon. We'll see if it doesn't get banned.
Actually, that's not a bad idea. And certainly, it's a big platform now.
Yeah.
We'll see what they do.
Yeah.
The last thing, standalone emails. What I mean by standalone emails is not like an email that go out to the whole chapter, but it's not necessarily a newsletter. Maybe an announcement. If we have the annual campaign going on, we often do that. Just like a special one-off email. If you have something special going on in the chapter or something announcement that needs to be made, they're a good tool to get the word out to volunteers quickly. So we recommend you use these tools to help get the word out about One Brick. We're going to continue to beef up this section and put in some links to some examples of what we have in some chapters. So again, this continues to evolve. This is a living document, and we're going to continue to enhance it so it's even better. Social events, we're going to talk about a little bit. In some cities and some chapters, volunteer relations are in charge of that. In some other chapters, there's a separate team that handles socials. You found that link. Thank you. I've been looking for that for a long time. So thank you, Jeanette.
No worries.
Okay. Where was I? Social events. Social events obviously are a key part of One Brick and our mission. In addition to the volunteering, the social aspect of One Brick is really what differentiates us from some other types of nonprofits that do some type of volunteer work. We recommend that chapters hold regular social events when possible. And obviously, in this day and age, it's probably safer to do virtual socials, and a lot of our chapters have done that successfully. And I think that is something we can add to this. Is information about the virtual socials. So we have some suggestions of typical socials here. The traditional happy hour, bar, restaurant, brewery socials, those have probably been the most common. But there's been a lot of success, especially in some chapters, with activity-based socials. Things such as trivia, bowling, pool, or completion of a volunteer activity. Those, particularly are a great way to get people engaged and sort of mingling together, and sort of get people to know each other while doing an activity. And those people, at least in Boston, a lot of volunteers were asking for that. So there's been a lot of shift towards that and away from more of the traditional bar socials. Joint socials with nonprofit and community partners, a good way to work with nonprofit partners and get their base and our base together, mingle and meet each other. Hiking and outdoor excursions, and then obviously social events with fundraising components, raffles, door prizes, fundraisers. Best practice for social events. There should be a link there. I'll have to find it. I'll have to fix that. We do have some social event templates. We have a sample social calendar that you can use, just a simple spreadsheet to keep track of what you might have done in a couple months. And this is based on what had been done in Boston a couple years ago, 2018, 2017, 2016. Seems like just yesterday. We have an outreach template. So a simple template you can use, fill in for your chapter, just sort of a template to use to reach out to a event venue about hosting a social. So this is something that you can use. We also have another piece of volunteer relations is getting feedback from volunteers. A number of chapters have used surveys over the year. So we have a couple example survey templates that can be used in SurveyMonkey, and they can also be put in Google Forms. So we've got a simple template PDF that could be replicated in terms of a post-event volunteer survey that could be mailed out after an event, basically asking, how people would rate the event, what do they think about the EM, do they have any feedback, they have would they like to see similar types of events, that type of thing. The surveys has been useful, at least in many of the chapters over the years. Be able to get information about like what events volunteers like, what events they don't, or were there any issues at a particular event. It's also a great way to get positive feedback about EMs and constructive feedback on what they may be able to work on. We also have a social event template survey as well. Community partnerships are an important way for OneBrick to work with local businesses, whether it be a brewery, a restaurant, or other nonprofits, to increase our visibility in the community, obtain complimentary space and in-kind donations, and help run special events. The basic idea is to support the organization business through our social media and other advertising, and by bringing business and awareness to the company in exchange for them supporting OneBrick through social media fundraising and donation of food and other in-kind supports. That's been that partnerships were a tremendous piece that allowed the Boston chapter to develop what it is today, for example. And I know in some other chapters, partnerships have been a real important aspect over the years. I know, Roger, you mentioned the Oktoberfest in San Francisco. Obviously, that partnership's been going on for years, and it's been a big fundraising and big event platform for OneBrick. So we have some templates here that we can use for partnerships. There's a memorandum of understanding template, sort of just a basic agreement between you and a partner, and then a template to use to outreach to potential partners. The last piece that falls under here is this a little bit maybe not related to volunteer relations, but we put it in here anyway. The website has a number of reports available that can be used to help assist with the operation of the chapter. For example, we have an event report. These are all available under My OneBrick and reports. By clicking each of these links, it will take you to the reports. You can get, I have to log in. Okay. Okay, I didn't think I asked for this. Someone messed up my attachment? There we go. So for example, this will give you a simple report. You can filter by chapter for each quarter. I don't see any for 2020 yet, but for each chapter, you'll be able to see how many events, organizations we work with, how many people attend events, how many unique volunteers, and how many hours for each quarter going back to our existence. And you can also export it by clicking on CSV. It will export a CSV file. We've got similar reports for RSVPs, so you can take a look at specific events, who attended, who didn't. And we also have a summary of new users and subscribers that can be filtered by year and chapters. Some chapters are using that to reach out to new volunteers, sort of give them a welcome. Same thing with the new volunteer report. We'll show you who signed up in a set period of time that you can form. We have a volunteer detail report, which basically will give you specific details at the volunteer level in terms of number of events attended, hours for your chapter. So you can see how many events such and such attended, and how many hours they've achieved while working with OneBrick. Note that you need to keep volunteer contact information confidential, that we're not allowed to share our volunteer data with third parties. Once again, these are available, I believe, to people who have certain roles in the website. So they're useful if you want to be able to track trends and look at different things. And we have a presentation that I did, I think I first did it in 2015, then I did it again in 2018 at the retreat about working with data. So it's a good resource if you want to learn about how you can use data to help manage your chapter in terms of looking at, everything from, what types of events tend to have better attendance than others. Are you seeing growth or declines in new volunteers, for example? What's your attendance rate, that kind of thing. So it's a good resource if you're interested in that. So I'd recommend that. So I'll turn it back over to the group to ask if anyone had any specific questions, and sort of to find out, is there anything more specific you'd like to get out of this tonight?
So this is Roger in San Francisco. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So there's a part that has been going on here for years, and I'm just so impressed by it. I'm wondering if other places are doing it. And I'm talking about the Vintners Festival, which is a
what festival?
The wine festival.
Oh, wine. Okay.
So it's a weekend festival where people pay, $40 to come in and buy wines, and about 150 different wine companies come in and display. And to my knowledge, the way it's smart is that the promoter has to rent a space for, let's say, $100,000. But if they do it for a fundraising charity and donate to our 501c3 number, they get a discount. So that's the incentive for them. We provide the free labor, and we hand out the stemware and raffle tickets and so forth. But what really impresses me is that every wine vendor there has to dish over 2 bottles of wine to OneBrick, which goes for raffle. At the end of the wine celebration, whatever they don't want to take back, they can donate to OneBrick for a tax write-off, and then OneBrick will donate those bottles to other charities for their wine bottle for charity auction. So that converts a wine bottle to hard cash for one of our sister charities, which I think is brilliant.
Wow, that's great. So how long has that been going on for? A while, I'm guessing?
I think greater than 6 years. I've been going there frequently, but yeah, it's on the waterfront, and it's just like Oktoberfest. They could have to pay a commercial rate to rent the space, or if they donate it for a charity like OneBrick, they get it for a fraction thereof. So it makes it more profitable for them to partner with OneBrick to use their 501c3 number to get the write-off. That's
a great example of a partnership that's worked over many years, that's had both financial benefit, but also visibility. I'm sure it helps with visibility as well, Roger.
Yeah, so we have big banners that say OneBrick, and we're all wearing our gear. Yeah. And people ask us, what are you doing? At first, people just want to get in there and get to the wine drinking, but after they've loosened up a little bit, they're like, so what's OneBrick? And we bring flyers and brochures, and we get some signups, and so it's good cross promo. With Oktoberfest, they put the OneBrick logo on all their swag and advertising, so you see OneBrick logo a lot. And with general, with our partners, we ask them to promote our logo, and then we do the same with their logo, cross promotion.
Awesome, that's a great example.
Thanks.
I know that some other chapters have done similar type of festivals. Jeanette, you guys have done some, right?
I'm sorry, what kind of festivals?
You guys have done some larger festivals up in Seattle, right?
Yes, so we did the Bacon and Beer Fest for several years. And then throughout the year here, we also help with Fremont Oktoberfest, the Seattle Scotch and Beer Fest, as well as Kirkland Uncorked.
Awesome. Yeah, I know Boston, we tried a couple festivals over the years. So we had a couple years we did a Sam Adams Festival that was facilitated by the ED at the time. And there were obviously some logistical challenges with it in terms of expectations for us, and we wanted cross promotion, and they didn't want to do that. So it didn't turn out as well. I think it'd be great to have some type of for each chapter have some type of sort of festival sort of relationship like Roger was describing. Obviously, that probably takes time to build, and obviously right now we're not having any festival, but I'm sure in the future it should be something that we might be able to explore a little bit on a national level, trying to maybe develop. We talked a little bit about this before. A national partnership with a place that does festivals in multiple cities might be able to benefit multiple chapters.
Yeah, definitely some of the things that we do, if we are looking at a festival that we may want to partner with, a lot of times instead of going straight into it, we may just sort of test it out sort of as individual volunteers to see how the festival is run itself, how they treat their volunteers, if they're organized, do kind of the volunteer perks kind of outweigh either a longer shift or maybe modifying our usual ways of doing. Some of them want us to go a bit longer than our usual 2 to 5 or 2 to 4 hours. And so if there's something like, oh, you get this free $60 entry tickets, like, oh, well, it might be worth to do a 5-hour shift. So yeah, and we've found a couple of festivals that were like, oh, it sounds good, but in practice, this is really not going to work for us. So it's helped us a lot.
Great. Does anyone else have any questions or comments related to anything that we talked about, or anything particular questions or things you'd like to get out of this?
Yeah, I can
sort of just have an open discussion. Yeah.
So I've noticed that certain restaurants, when their restaurants were open, would do a lot of partnerships, like donate 10% of profits for the first Tuesday of every month. And instead of developing my own context, I just went to them, and they're more than happy to cross promote and get their label out through our channels. So oftentimes the people that want to partner with us are really looking for ways to give back, because they're community-based restaurants, and also free advertising is always a win. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. That's what I'm saying.
Nice. Yeah, I know. Restaurants have been, especially breweries and bars, have been important in some chapters in terms of partnerships. Actually, we had found out today, actually, kind of sad news, that our original brewery partner in Boston shut down for good today. They went out of business. We worked with them for about 6, 7 years. Yeah, so that's unfortunate, but they were good in the moment to help us get where we're at today. Any other questions or things that you want to talk about? Are there any specific things that you want to get out of this today, or anything you want to add?
I am curious for the rest of the group.
Yep.
How do you keep, given that we can't really do many volunteer events right now, what do you do on your social media to keep people engaged at the moment? Because it feels a little, it's kind of tough to post Throwback Thursday or whatever to an event that people can't sign up for. And especially, at least for me, with all of the, we can't really touch on the whole civil rights political issues going on, but it does feel a little frivolous to try to post something during all of that. So I'm just like, I don't know what to post. So I'm just kind of keeping quiet, but I do want to get, people engaged. So I kind of don't know how to approach it when I look at the news is one thing, but I can't really post about it. So what other kinds of things do you do to keep people engaged?
I think that's a great topic, and I'm sure that everyone's dealing with that right now. I'm interested to hear if anyone has any suggestions. And I guess one thing could be, resources from or news from our nonprofit partners if they need help with this and that. I know we've done a little bit of that.
Mhm.
So what San Francisco has done is they've collected a list of the pop-up food pantries by the San Francisco Food Bank.
Mhm.
Even though One Brick's not directly having the volunteers, we just show the opportunities around the city, like where people can go from 8 to 11 in the morning and help out. So it's really minimal, but at least it gives people an opportunity to look at a calendar and decide if and when they want to go. But it's really,
Yeah, as well as like some virtual volunteer events as well. Volunteer Match had a lot of virtual volunteer events, and
Okay.
I think we posted a bunch of those. I'm not sure. Hopefully, people, went and did something and were engaged.
Mhm. Yeah, those are good starts. Thanks.
And I think, didn't we do also games, like game nights and things that other chapters were doing, like cross chapters? So maybe if you weren't able
Yeah.
to join a game in your chapter, maybe you could, join another chapter and do a happy hour or game or something like that as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah, Clive had created a Google Calendar for all the chapters to stick their virtual socials up there. Um, so I believe if you don't have access to that, I can definitely send the link around. That could be, yeah. You can link, obviously, post about other chapters. I know Silicon Valley does a couple things a month. I think they do like a trivia and Cards Against Humanity. I think Chicago did something.
Mhm.
I know we've done stuff in Boston.
so I've noticed this, that on Craigslist, which is pretty popular out here in the Bay Area,
Mhm.
you can be inundated with volunteer opportunities. And right now they're very sparse. So when I put One Brick ads on there, they really stand out. And I try to keep it short. I say safely hand out groceries to families. And then where it says, location, I say you choose time and place, just to make it flexible and simple. And then I have a couple pictures of the volunteers working outside at a food bank, and then a picture of the calendar of the upcoming events, and then links to our calendar. And then I also like throwing in a link to the Wikipedia One Brick page because it's pretty
Okay.
decent. Gives us some nice authority.
Okay. When you say the handing out groceries kind of thing, you mean the things that One Brick is not involved in with directly but helps with, or One Brick events?
The former. So they're officially set up and sanctioned by the food bank. And
Gotcha.
just shows the opportunities, and if people choose to go, they don't really sign up on the One Brick because they have to sign up for the food bank. So as long as people are getting fed, I'm satisfied. They don't have to
Yeah.
go through the rigmarole.
Mhm.
And so those are just food pantries that are popping up. There's about 2 or 3 a day throughout the city.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, certainly the needs out there. That's great that you guys are connecting people to the opportunity. I guess another thing might be to see if there's things that people can do at home to help out. I know we talked a little bit about that concept of virtual volunteering.
I'm really glad you, because I've seen some things where you can make masks at home where they send you masks and you can either attach straps to them or cut out plastic see-through material to make a visor. So I don't know if we could send remotely to our volunteers or how that would work, but I've seen that pop up in the news around the country.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you could figure out the logistics, maybe you could even have like a virtual event where people make their own masks, but you have like a Zoom call where we do it together. I mean, I don't know how good that would work, but it's certainly something you could try.
It'd be fun. And we could help each other if we come up with difficulties, technically.
Yeah. That's true. I don't think I would be very good at it unless I had somebody guiding me. I remember I took a sculpture class in college, and the regular stuff we did was fine. Then there was one that we had to do something with sewing, and I was awful at it, absolutely awful. If I had a sewing machine. Stefan, do you have anything or ideas or things that you want to suggest or talk about? Don't mean to put you on the spot.
Nah, no worry about it. Think, I mean, I was just kind of like hearing like people's ideas for the most part, and
Yeah.
I think the one, I think it's just the times that make it kind of hard. So that's
Oh,
why I was just
absolutely.
kind of like hearing like everyone's feedback on everything, and even for me, like trying to piece together like any ideas of my own, I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
all tough.
I have to say, it was like when I was preparing for this, I kind of looked at it. I said, well, I'm talking here about social events, partnerships, and venues, and it's like we can't really do a lot of that right now in
Yeah,
person.
exactly.
Yeah.
And especially, we don't know, you know, what things will look like, when we kind of climb out of it, when we kind of
Yeah.
climb out of it, if, folks are even going to feel comfortable, like, try and do certain things again. So I think you guys made good points in terms of just trying to keep people
Yeah.
active.
I think that's the challenge right now that we're all facing in every chapter is trying to keep people engaged.
Mhm.
It's really, I think, there have been everything from virtual volunteering to the virtual socials to, doing what San Francisco and Silicon Valley have been doing, like directing people other opportunities. It's, we're trying to, that's, I think, the biggest challenge we have right now is keeping our volunteers engaged. And hopefully, we may have to adapt and change when we come out of this. So again, this resource guide is intended to be a living document. So we may
Mhm.
have to change a lot of this if we have to change, if we have to sort of shift things as we move forward. Certainly, I think I'm going to fill in a section about virtual volunteering, not virtual volunteering, virtual socials. Is that the mask, Roger?
This is one of the things I saw in the news the other day, so I'm not sure what it is. It looks like grocery kits with hand sand sent to
Huh.
people's, but I'm not sure how that's assembled. But I know there's some like local friends of mine that are buying hand sand in bulk and then wholesale food and then bulk breaking that down and then driving it around in a van to at-risk seniors. But that's not a one brick.
That's a great thing that they're doing, though. That's a great idea. That's pretty cool. I wish we had something locally like that. Maybe there is.
So there's one thing that's not really one brick related, but certainly helps out economic viability and tends to be food and drink related. And that is there's a pool of volunteers that are helping local restaurants deliver food within the North Beach neighborhood here in San Francisco. And it helps the restaurants avoid paying the Postmates fee of 30%.
Mhm.
So people are donating to the restaurants, volunteers are bringing food and drink. And, while they're at the restaurant, they're drinking and eating food as, outside. But that's a way to have fun and help people off the books.
That's cool. Is there still, this is an off the topic question, you're not up North Beach. I remember I've been to San Francisco about 4 times. I always thought that was a cool neighborhood. There's still that restaurant there that's all garlic.
Yeah, the Rose, it's
Yeah.
all the restaurants are mostly boarded up, but
Yeah.
they have parking spaces with barriers, and so people are eating out on the streets with heat lamps. But there's about a 35% vacancy rate on commercial
Wow.
properties.
Wow. Oh, I remember the last time I was there, it was booming. That was about 3 years ago. Yeah. I think the same thing's happening probably in most other cities. Crazy.
with the tech industry, there's no conferences and people are getting to work from home. So why come into the downtown?
Mm.
So it's a ghost town.
Interesting times. Yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone have any wrap-up questions? Or anything else they want to ask or bring up? Don't want to keep you too long tonight. I know it's Monday night. I know I had a long day. I do want to thank you all for joining us tonight. We have a recording of this that we've been doing as we've been doing with all of them. We'll post them up on YouTube and make it available to everyone. So everyone who couldn't be here has a chance to see what was discussed. Again, our next session will be in 2 weeks on the 17th, and that specifically be about the chapter director role. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to do that. I'll try to see if Ryan and Clive can assist with that as well. I think their expertise would be useful for that discussion. So look forward, hopefully, to having you join us for that. And then our last session on the end, August 31st. Again, this will be a living document. I encourage you to share with other volunteers, exec team members, EMs, ECs. And if there are any questions about it or anything that you think should be added or tweaked, then just reach out and I will work with you on that. Thank you all, and hope you all have a great night. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Graham.
Thank you.
Yeah,
everybody.
thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right.
Take care.
Have a great night. All right. Bye.
Bye.